And speaking of radicalized left-wingers, let's talk about how Antifa are being treated now that they think that Donald Trump has lost the presidential election and that Joe Biden has won. So we'll begin with Ted Wheeler. Ted Wheeler being the mayor of Portland, the progressive mayor of Portland, who has found himself as the right-wing mayor of Portland because of the way that Portland is. It's incredibly radically left-wing. So for years, Wheeler has done nothing about Antifa taking control of various sections of the city, taking over the sort of public political life of the city, intimidating residents, actively attacking their political opponents, and that includes Ted Wheeler himself. Again, this has been going on for years, so I'm summarizing about 4 years worth of Antifa violence in Portland that we've covered many, many times in previous podcasts and on different channels. So we'll just get to what's happened most recently. So this first clip is from the 23rd of July 2020 during a protest against Wheeler himself, in which Wheeler was trying to ingratiate himself. But let's watch it. If we can.
Give it over. Trump equals Stalin.
Ted has never been gassed and it shows. These are really uninformed signs. But this is Ted Wheeler, for anyone who can't see it and is listening to the podcast, being surrounded by mobs of Antifa and booed as he tries to leave. So Ted Wheeler then tries to give a speech to Antifa, and notice
cringe, right?
It's not the first time he's been chased out of a protest that Antifa have been giving against state oppression, I guess that you would call it, and they have arrived at the exactly same point that Patriot Prayer had arrived at, the far right group that had also demanded that Ted Wheeler be removed from his job and resigned from his job. So Antifa and Patriot Prayer both agree on Ted Wheeler. He needs to go. And this next video is from CNN, and it's just them describing what that particular protest. But this was just one protest over 100 nights straight of protests in Portland by the radical left. And they would obviously get in fights with Patriot Prayer. They would destroy property and etc. etc. I'm not going to reiterate it all.
Anarchist violence on a daily basis for 100 days.
Yeah, attacking citizens, public buildings, private property. Anyway, let's see what CNN say.
Mayor of Portland, Oregon, has compared the scene in his city overnight to urban warfare. Mayor Ted Wheeler was among those who was tear-gassed, there he is there, during a protest against racial injustice and inequality. Clashes between protesters and federal agents the president has deployed there have repeatedly become violent.
So, I mean,
the guy next to him has a little earpiece.
Yes.
Personal bodyguard.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Ted Wheeler trying to, again, ingratiate himself with Antifa, even in July this year, or last year, sorry, doesn't get anywhere. They hate him. He is the problem. He is the state. He's the agent of the state. And this was at the time when Trump was saying, well, no, I'm going to send in federal agents, and he obviously had done. And Ted Wheeler had openly said, we don't want your federal agents. Stay out of Portland, you Nazi. And so this had continued escalating. In September 2020, Ted Wheeler was forced to flee his own apartment when Antifa had attacked it, as reported by Oregon Live. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler says he's looking for a new place to live after his Pearl District condo building had been the site of repeated demonstrations, including on Monday when crowds demanded he resign and some people set fires and broke windows. This was Antifa. This wasn't Patriot Prayer. In an email Tuesday from Wheeler to the other residents of the 16th-floor high-rise tower, so he's endangering other people by having such a light touch with Antifa, because at no point has he done anything significant to rein in Antifa up until this point. But he says, it would be best for me and everyone else's safety and peace if he found a new home. And he assured the people that police are taking their safety concerns seriously. Again, horrifically ironic, considering he had not taken the danger of Antifa seriously at all.
I mean, just to be clear here, that protest, that little segment there, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's them at that courthouse where people had thrown IEDs and tried to burn down a skyscraper that's the courthouse, which would have, caused how much damage?
No, I think it was a separate one. I think that was a separate occurrence.
I'm
'Cause
pretty
that
sure
was
it's at the courthouse, man.
well, it may well have been at the courthouse, but that wasn't at his house, at his apartment.
Oh no, I'm talking about the footage of the protest where
Yeah,
he
that was
getting
a courthouse.
gassed.
Yeah. But the September protests at his apartment, also where his apartment was set fire to, his condo, or the building was set fire to, endangering the other residents, etc., etc.
But that's my point. The fact that this skyscraper might have been taken down sided with them, and there's condos getting attacked and would kill other people.
Yeah. And all through this time, he has tried to ingratiate himself into their movement.
But these people are attempted murderers, if not manslaughter.
Well, I mean, Michael Reinl was 100%
Successful
Antifa,
murderer.
and was a successful murderer. So, and this happened in Portland. Again, all of this happened under Ted Wheeler's watch, and he has been permissive of it. And I think he was permissive of it, and again, right up until September, because that was pre-November, pre the apparent election victory of Joe Biden. Now that Joe Biden appears to be the president-elect, and he's going to be the guy that we assume is going to win.
Oh, and Ted Wheeler's got re-elected as well.
Oh, and Ted Wheeler got re-elected because he's now the right-wing candidate for stability and order against the radical left, this Mao skirt-wearing woman who presumably wants full communism. But now that Ted Wheeler's been re-elected and it looks like Biden's good to go and it looks like Trump's gone, this is what Ted Wheeler has to say about Antifa now. Can we hear it?
My good faith efforts at de-escalation have been met with ongoing violence and even scorn from radical Antifa and anarchists. In response, it will be necessary to use additional tools and to push the limits of the tools we already have to bring the criminal destruction and violence to an end. Lawlessness and anarchy come at great expense and with great risk to the future of our community. It's time to push back harder against those who are set on destroying our community and to take more risks in fighting lawlessness. In closing, once again, I condemn anyone who engages in violence or criminal destruction, no matter what their ideology.
Okay, well, I mean...
What a transparent scumbag. Like, I've got no sympathy for this man. The de-escalation. You were out there with them. That's a de-escalation, is it?
And it wasn't just once. He's been out there with them multiple times, and he has been chased off from their protest multiple times because he is the target of the protest. And it's just amazing, isn't it, that now he sounds just like Trump. Now it's like, oh, we're going to use the full force of the law to crack down these. Like 6 months ago, he's like, Trump, don't you dare send troops in to put down these protests. How dare you, you Nazi. And now he's in exactly the goddamn same thing. And why did it take this long? This was true on day one. This was true on the first time they started bullying and harassing and burning things. This was true right up until the point where Antifa shot someone in the street. It was true up until the point where they were attempting to set fire to your house, and it's only now that this is the problem. It's obvious that you've been using Antifa as a political tool. It's obvious that that's been the case. And this isn't going to work very well, is it, Ted? You know, it's not like Antifa. I mean, you're in a city. Portland is probably the most left-wing city in the United States for like open radicalism. And it's not like this is just going to go away now that you're like, well, we're going to get the police to arrest you. Okay, well, you know that they're terrorists, don't you, Ted? You know, and what do these terrorists do? Well, they do the sort of thing that they did to Nancy Pelosi recently, which is absolutely like vandalize her property. And can we get the picture up so we can see it? Because the picture is definitely worth it.
So they went to her personal home.
Yeah, they went to her, one of her homes, right? One of Nancy Pelosi's homes. This is a $5.4 million 4-bedroom, 3-property house, which is one of her residences
So for people who
in
are listening,
California.
you want to describe it?
So for people who are listening, there's a picture of the sort of garage doors on the ground floor with 2K with that crossed out, cancel rent, with an anarchist symbol and we want everything written on it. And then there is a pig's head in the front, just on the floor in front of the garage, and there's blood strewn around on the floor. Could that be any more clear?
Yeah. We want socialism. We don't care about your handouts, and we're coming for you.
Here's a pig's head and loads of blood to make the point.
No, this rise in right-wing violence has to stop.
Yeah. Well, so incidentally, on that note, there is a fake tweet going around that appears to be from Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh, the white supremacist did this." That's a fake tweet. She didn't tweet about this at all, which is really interesting because you would think that if this was something she was expecting and felt that she could handle, she'd tweet out some virtue signally message about it and then get it all in order behind the scenes. But instead, she hasn't said a goddamn word, which makes me think, well, this was unexpected or perhaps unplanned. But she wasn't the only one. Mitch McConnell got his house vandalized too for a fairly similar message. No pig's head for Mitch McConnell. I guess the pig's head is really reserved for the Democrats themselves. Yeah. But the message read, "Where's my money? Mitch kills the poor." And this comes after Mitch McConnell has blocked the $2,000 stimulus check that Trump was arguing for and Bernie was arguing for, saying this is socialism for rich people, etc., etc. I don't want to go into that now because it's just not the subject of what we're going for. But yeah, so these terrorists are not going away. Again, Pelosi, the squad, all of the Democrats have been playing defense for Antifa for years because they viewed them as on their political side. They viewed them as part of their own constituency. And now they're not going to just go away because they're no longer politically useful. And so you would think that these sort of more radical left-wing elements would have something to say about this. And AOC did have something to say about this. She was complaining about these, the stimulus, the big stimulus bill. And she's been complaining about Pelosi for years. And yet they all just went out and voted for Pelosi to become the Speaker of the House again, which she was elected on. Did you want to play the video?
Yeah, if we can, because it's also just funny to make this point. Because there's so many leftists, especially Cenk, trying to be like, no, we never vote Pelosi. But
Ocasio-Cortez, Pelosi.
Just exactly whipped into line. And it's amazing. All of the squad voted for Pelosi, despite the fact they claim that they hate neoliberalism, they hate capitalism. These people are the problem. When Pelosi's there in front of her like $25,000 fridge, going, "Oh, good luck, poor people," and they're like, "Yeah, okay, Pelosi." It's like, you're weak. You're absolutely weak. So Pelosi gets reelected with a diminished majority, and it takes someone like Steve Scalise to call out Pelosi instead. Steve Scalise being the Republican judge who was shot in 2017 by a Bernie bro at a baseball game. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So again, terrorists, radical Antifa terrorists have shot this guy. He's now a representative. He's elected representative. But he just tweets out, "Unbelievable. Looks like Nancy Pelosi is keeping Representative Eric Swalwell on the House Intelligence Committee in the new Congress, even after his ties to a Chinese spy were exposed. Why do Democrats refuse to stand up to China?" Eric Swalwell being the guy who was caught having an affair with the Chinese spy. Like, why is she keeping him on the House Intelligence Committee? Again, he's clearly compromised. Like, what is wrong with these people? I just don't understand what their values are and what they think they're doing. And in fact, we'll go into that in a second. I've just got to clear my throat.
But it's kind of swamp people for me. Like Pelosi, Joe Biden, these are just swamp people.
Totally. 100% swamp people. And they're totally corrupt, and they seem to be in the pocket of China, which is why Swalwell gets to be on the Intelligence Committee, even though he's compromised by a Chinese agent. Like, I don't know what to say.
It's not a bug, it's a feature, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But what are they concerned with? What are their values? Well, as reported by the Post-Millennial, Nancy Pelosi and the Rules Committee Chairman James P. McGovern, a Democrat from Massachusetts, have proposed rules that aim to do away with gendered language. Oh, that's useful. That was kitchen table priority for Americans, I'm sure, right? Congress has proposed rules to eliminate language denoting mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, uncles, aunts, and other familial relationships. It wants to instead insert parent, child, sibling, spouse, or parent-in-law, and obviously strike himself or herself and insert themself into the congressional proceedings.
Right.
Like
this is under the guise of we want to be less misogynist or sexist, therefore we'll get rid of the sex barriers. But that's not what they're doing at all, because then why do you need to get rid of father, daughter, and all the rest of it? Yeah. Like, that's just a description of what you are.
Exactly.
Like, it's very clearly an attack on families.
Exactly. It's the sundering of relationships. Like, what they're doing is, a parent and a child, well, that doesn't have to be connected. right? But a father and a daughter, there is an implied connection between a father and a daughter, the father being the parent, the daughter thing. So if you're trying to remove the kind of, and this is something I'm going to talk about in a premium podcast fairly soon, actually, because, I'm going to sit down and teach you all of this stuff that I've been reading, because this is important stuff, right? Because this is an example of what we call thick language, right? In the terms of father, there are a bunch of assumptions that are built into it, that it's a man, that he has a direct relationship with the child, that he is therefore responsible for the child, that he has a familial bond with the child, that he is emotionally invested in the child. There's all of these assumptions built.
He owns the child.
That he owns the child, that the child is his. There's all of these assumptions built into that one word. It's a very thick word. It's dense with concepts. And what you do when you reduce it to parent, you take away all of those things. Parent could be mother or father. So all that information is gone now. You don't have all of this extra human information. But like I said, I'll talk about it in a premium podcast, which is why you should sign up to lotus.com, because you aren't going to get this kind of quality analysis anywhere else, I promise.
This is the kind of garbage we actually had at a university in my time.
Well,
so,
and we'll go into that in a second, because this is all important to look at the values they're promoting. God damn it. So this next one, and again, this has just happened. This was passed in June 2019, but only took effect on New Year's Day. Beverly Hills has decided to ban the sale of tobacco. Why? Who's calling for this? Whose job is this, right? The then mayor of the city, John Mirisch, said at the time, "We are a city that has taken the lead on restricting smoking and promoting public health. Somebody has to be first, so let it be us. These are the values of our community." Like, what? This reflects the values of our community. What a bizarre thing to do. Like, what values are? The values of the community are, we don't like that you do something.
Smoking is haram. That's the values.
Exactly. How is this not like progressive Sharia?
Like, why not ban alcohol then? What is the argument?
Yeah, we're going to ban gendered pronouns. We're going to ban tobacco. I guess they like their wine still, so I guess they don't want to get rid of that yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, what value set are we looking at that says this thing that you like is forbidden because it's bad for your health? Again, somebody had to be the first to ban tobacco to promote public health.
Isn't weed legal in California as well?
Yes. I don't know. There's no consistency. And this is the thing. What are their values? And their values seem to be insane.
I was going to mention the university thing. I'll do it now. But it's essentially, in university, we got told in our report, so this is not just a social science thing. This is in physics. So when we did our lab report, so it's got into the hard studies now, like Jordan Peterson warned, this is a small thing, but it's when you mention someone in your reports, you couldn't use anything gendered. So you couldn't say he, she, or anything like that.
It.
What I ended up using was worker, which is just very communist, but that's sort of the point, isn't it,
But that is exactly the point. But we'll talk about this in a premium podcast, because I've done loads of work on this.
So the worker does X. It's so dry.
It's fascinating. Yeah, this is what we could term scientific language, which isn't really very useful for describing human concepts, like people. But anyway, so yeah, like whatever the values of the Democrats are at this point, I have no idea. And it seems that they don't either. They've been openly in favor of terrorism. And now they're like, okay, but you're not going to smoke tobacco around, here. It's like, okay, but I mean, I've been to Beverly Hills.
No tobacco in the commune, lads.
Yeah, but I've been to Beverly Hills. You can just walk into it and then walk out of it. So I could just walk out of Beverly Hills, buy my tobacco, and then go back in, right? I mean, it's not actually walled off or anything.
But surely, if it's a value judgment, they want to ban it in all of California next.
I don't doubt that will be the case. Yeah, but
calling it that would be a proposition in, I don't know, let's say 4 years.
But again, like what the idea that public health supersedes your rights, your bodily autonomy. I mean, what happened to my body, my choice? Like, it's a total contradiction to that principle. But now it's public health is going to supersede. The greater good is coming in. It's like, I don't know why anyone votes for the Democrats. I think they're awful.